Hello, everybody, and welcome to the FinTech Times. I'm really happy to be joined today by Lee Goodenough of VASS. Lee, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you. Yeah, the sun's shining. It's a good afternoon, so I think it would be it's nice to have a chat and come up here and say hello.
Thank you for dropping by. It's sort of really cleared up today, which is good that we're filming in front of these big windows. And it's not raining.
That's strange.
We've got a lot to discuss today, Lee, haven't we?
Yes.
There's a lot's going on with the company. There's a lot of big movements going on, a lot of big acquisitions, which we're going to mention. But before we get on to that, why don't you give our audience, who might not be familiar with VASS, a little bit of an insight into what the company does?
Yeah, absolutely. So VASS is a 23-year-old system integrator, obviously headquartered in Madrid, in Spain. They've got a kind of a fantastic, as you'd expect, typical sort of Spanish culture, very family-friendly organization. And it's been built organically over the last kind of 20 years. And as you can imagine, with a lot of the people who we work with, they've actually been there as like single-digit original employees. So it really is, you're kind of working as part of a family. And because of that, there's been obviously a lot of expansion over the years. You can imagine in any Spanish-speaking territory that we've been, we have operations in, and we've worked with many organizations throughout the years. And we have customers that have been sat with us for the last 20 years as well. Me, myself, I joined about 3 years ago and came on board to the UK into the lesser-known organization as VASS. And I will tell you as well, at the time, my Spanish was pretty terrible. And it still is as well, but don't tell anyone. It's been a real fun ride, and they're an absolute pleasure to work with and work for. There's obviously a huge amount of potential for the future as well as part of the organisation.
Definitely. And in terms of the audience that you're trying to capture at VASS, I mean, what kind of demographics are you looking at there?
Yeah, so we kind of have some core specialties, and that's the one thing that's always impressed me by. They've always looked to verticalize, and it's about how can we build a partnership with the customer. So financial services has been a core building block of what we've done over the last 20 years. And because of that, we've kind of partnered through, as you can imagine, many different sort of technological trends over the last 20 years. And probably more so over the last few years that we've seen, an absolute boom in financial services where we're going from fins to tech companies. And so I think for us, our true specialty is in financial services, and especially here for VASS UK, is something that we've got a 100% focus on. But it's about bringing the right technologies, building the right partnerships, and building the right thought leadership as well in terms of how we can partner with the customer moving forward.
It sounds like you've got a really interesting business proposition there that you're discussing about, and as you've done well to highlight so far, is that it's spread all over the world. You have 20 offices spread across 5 continents, I believe.
Yeah.
So in terms of if you look at it regionally, of course it's a global company, but what regional disparities have you noticed, if any?
Yeah, I think. Like I said, I've only had the luxury for working with them for 3 years, but I think that we've got obviously Europe, US, LATAM, and more recently into Asia Pacific. And I think I always like to talk about the LATAM piece, but also how we're trying to go to market in the UK and obviously in Spain. The UK has such a strong sort of heritage with financial services from Spain. So if you cast your mind back 10, 15 years, there was a few takeovers from some Spanish banks into the UK retail banking sector. But I think you can see now some of where technology drivers or access to information, access to data, onboarding information and everything else. There's a huge amount of regional disparities, in terms of, and that is actually around how people access information as well. So I think, if you look at the likes of LATAM, things like, how they access, banking because of limitations on corporate, on infrastructure, around those countries, is something that, you could argue that we're still moving towards as well. But also in the UK, there's a huge amount of legacy in the UK that doesn't exist in places like LATAM. Everything's still paper-based. And so there's a lot we're learning off one another. So, we try and we have a kind of a really good communication network behind the scenes understanding about, okay, what are we doing with this technology? What are we doing with that technology? And then really kind of comparing it with, the different types of customers. So we partner with some of the biggest banks all over the world, and some over here we've never heard of, as well. So it's a really eye-opening experience and a really good opportunity as well.
Well, just talking about the application of your services, I mean, as you mentioned, VASS has been going for over 2 decades now.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, in terms of how your offering works from a fintech perspective, how has the offering changed or developed as fintech has become increasingly popular?
So I think for us, we've got some really key sort of relationships with software vendors. But actually, at the heart of it, we're an organization with a bunch of Java developers, and I think, that allows us to say, okay, we understand some of the core platforms, banking platforms, or, the custom home build, but we understand the entire ecosystem of what people are actually trying to pull together. And to me, that's really key. And, is about understanding the journey, the roadmap, but understanding the entire ecosystem of how people are trying to bring this stuff together. So it really is, every time you walk into you have conversations with fintechs, it's every conversation is different, and that's the exciting part, is because they've built their platform, and so it's up to us to understand how they're doing it, how they're going to market, and then for us to recommend either solutions or ways of building, and actually bringing the experts into the room as well, and helping to define this journey for them as well.
So in terms of the development that your company pioneers, in the current financial services climate, where do you see the best space for innovation right now?
There's a few. I think a lot of it's pretty well documented in areas. I think it depends what sub industry you're working in, right? There's about 1 million different buzzwords for different techs that are coming out, right? And don't get me wrong, they're all interesting, but I think from my sort of personal interest, I think the wealth industry has, I think, a lot, and I think that's generational modernization as well. When you think about a lot of old money in wealth, and now a lot of new money that's coming through as well. And I think, the way in how people want to access money, to their information, I think the wealth industry can do a lot, in terms of how people want to access money and what they want to do with it as well. People don't want to go into a bank anymore. They don't want to go into a branch. They don't want to speak to people. They want to just go, how do I access things on my mobile phone? And that's going to be the same with wealth, over the next kind of 10 to 15 years. The second thing I think that it really interests us personally is ESG, and all concepts around money, around ESG. Whether it's understanding how your money's invested or where your money is borrowed from, as well. And there needs to be, there's a lot more regulation coming in Europe and in the UK, and so there needs to be a lot more rigor around, how we shine a light on, where these funds are, or where they're going to, or where they've come from. So that's kind of some of the key things that we like. And then I think you can't get away from, things like decentralized finance, crypto networks, and even things like foreign exchange or crypto networks. So it's enormously exciting. And I think, with the likes of like open banking and everything, it's just really kind of modernized things and allowed for opportunities everywhere. So for us, it's, you can't be good at everything. And I think what we're trying to do is understand these key points. So whether it's banks trying to become fintechs, or fintechs trying to become a little bit more like traditional banks, right? You kind of got to enable them in their journey. So it's really fun. And I think we kind of have a lot of opportunity really to support the customers with what they're thinking about, where they're going next. And then you kind of add that into our network, and you kind of go, okay, we know about someone that's discussing blockchain in this country. Let's find out a little bit more.
So Lee, you've discussed a lot of the biggest innovations and the most topical areas of the industry so far. And I was just wondering, from your perspective, what does the company see as the biggest areas for innovation in financial services in the UK right now?
So I think for the UK, it's a really, we see an enormous amount of modernization, obviously, in the financial services industry, but there's some key kind of themes, some key trends that we're aware of, which is obviously very applicable to certain financial hubs like the UK, But obviously, you can see in these different hubs, be it LATAM, be it kind of Central Europe, be it Asia Pac or the US or whatever, they're all running at different speeds and focusing on different things. The first one for me, I think, for the UK in particular, is wealth management. I think wealth management has kind of a huge amount of opportunity to modernize, and that is around old money becoming young money. And over the next kind of 10 to 15 years, if you see the way young people bank, and I like to include myself in that category, I'll be clear on that. We have people want to access information on their phone. They want to do a lot of mobile banking. They don't want to speak to someone. They don't want to go into a branch. That's the last thing they can do. Booking an appointment to go into a branch, absolutely not. Now that's a traditional, that's how a lot of people do a lot of wealth management. So you can already see there's some fintechs or wealth techs that are emerging and providing some very innovative solutions. And I think, with a lot of the sort of traditional wealth managers or wealth banks, you're going to see either, acquisitions or, other areas that, they'll want to modernize, their technology from there. The second thing is ESG. It's on front of mind. It's a trend. It seems to be everything that people want to do. But I think I kind of call it down to a couple of different areas. And that's, where does the money come from and where's it getting invested? And that's obviously traditionally for a lot of asset managers or divisions in that space. And it's about just having more clarity, whether it be through regulation or whether it be through what do the people want or what do they want to see? How do they want more control in terms of how their money is invested into sustainable, reliable sources. And obviously understanding where is that money being borrowed from? Is it from sustainable sources as well? So I think you're going to see, or at least we're seeing right now, is a lot of focus and a lot of energy being put into that, obviously before the regulation comes into play. And then I think the final thing really is what everyone's looking at is things like decentralized finance, crypto networks, blockchain. It's one that everyone talks about, and there's smarter people than I that know more about this stuff as well. But it's how is a lot of these technologies, how are they going to fit into the mainstream banking, as well? So, early conversations with banks about blockchain, decentralized finance, and understanding, where's it going to go? How's it going to impact us? Is it going to impact things like foreign exchange markets as well? So it's a really interesting area. And to me, the most important thing is, we don't have all the answers. We've got experts that are located across different regions, different territories, and they're finding out these challenges that are applicable there. But it's getting the right people in the room and then just saying, look, we'll go find something, we'll go find it out, and we'll go make it work, and kind of and support you on that journey as well.
So Lee, VASS has had a massive year last year. Turnover was 200 million euros. The company grew by 58%. It acquired the German consulting firm eCenter this time last year, which was followed by the acquisition of CRI Group, One Inside and Movetia. How is this going to support the growth of the company in the UK?
That's a really good question. I think for the UK, for us, we have that pure focus on financial services. So what we're trying to do is, we want to build, we want to bring the best solutions, the best in-class talent. How can we, build sort of homegrown solutions? And it's about bringing our own kind of pre-purposed build solutions, but also having vendor-led solutions as well. And how can we bring that all together for the journey for the customer? I think there's no surprise that post pandemic, you have a mass kind of migration of people, and gaining access to resources becoming ever, kind of harder, and access to talent and those knowledgeable people that can help drive these strategies forward for our customers. So for us, I think and looking at the wider VASS network from within the UK, it's just about understanding better is, okay, those solutions that have come on board, how can we incorporate them into our strategy here, and be able to sit down with the customer, understand what challenges they're facing, and then to be able to say, okay, we've got the best in-class solution here, we've got the best talent here, and bring the right people together in the room. I think it's, I don't think everybody has the right answers today. There's, the trends, the challenges, where everyone's going. So what you just got to do is you've got to arm yourself well. right? To be able to answer whatever questions potentially come up, or have, whatever you're going to be faced with in the room, to turn around and say, look, I don't have the answers right now, but I've got someone that does, and so we got a large network now, and how we can tap into that talent is to me is very critical and important to our strategy moving forward.
You've really done well to underline the importance of having good resources and having the best talent available to you. With so much going on right now, as you've explained, how is VASS UK working to retain the talent it currently has?
Yeah, that's an even more interesting question than before. And I think if someone has the answer to that, just put it on a postcard and send it to us. But I think for me, I think if you look, people like myself or in the management team or whatever, we're all facing the same challenges that people are facing when they're going to, to work in their day-to-day jobs. I'm no different than anyone else. And so understanding in terms of what's important to me, and how, what's going to keep me happy at working at an organization is going to go some way towards in terms of understanding, what someone else is going to go through, right? We're all facing the same challenges. So I think, with everyone, money's not everything now, especially with technical talent. I think that's key. It's about, you've got to provide things on in multiple ways and on different levels. So you've got to be able to provide, cool projects, with cool clients, the coolest logos, and giving people challenges and actually turn around and saying, look, we're going to help you work on a project that is going to go onto your CV and is going to make you a superstar in the future, right? And, because I sit there, I'm like, that's what I would want to do. But also, the typical things, providing flexibility, providing good benefits, and actually work with similar-minded people as well to build a really good culture. And I think, what we take a lot of leadership and guidance from, how VASS have been doing it for like the last 23 years. And, they've built a family, right? That's probably the easiest way to look at it. And there's a very kind of family-led atmosphere. For us, so we want to take some guidance, from some of that, but we also got to try and do it, the right way. So, we've got people on the team, that are either from client side, from consultancy backgrounds, with different technologies, different ideas, and we want people to feel listened to. If they've got ideas, they probably know their subject much better than I do. So let's understand it a little bit better and how we can kind of bring it to the forefront in the business. So, if you're not going to win every battle, right? Especially with talent, and because people's, they change, they want to move forward, they want to progress, and it may take their life into a different trajectory, but, you've got to do the best you can as well. And so that's what we're trying to do. And we're still understanding it as well, day by day, like everyone else. So we're making changes, on the go in terms of what we think is going to work best. But right now, we're in a really good place that, we've got the cool projects. So, we've got people giving us a call and saying, hey, can we work on those? So, that's the best thing. That's all we can do. But so far, it's working out really well.
That's really, really fantastic to hear. I always love to hear these success stories of cultivating good talent. And personally, I think that is the secret to retaining a good workforce and a happy workforce, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
But Lee Goodenough, this has been a really, really fantastic conversation with you and, of course, with VASS UK. And I hope to catch up again soon.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks so much for having me as well. Absolute pleasure.